Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. And for real this time.
Happy Halloween.
I won't do the laugh again. I'm sorry for the last time. Anyways, today we're going to read a story. The story that I promised to you. The story that I've written for you. But let's stop dawdling, huh? Let's begin. Smile. You're on camera. Here you go, dears. I'll be back in a shake to get your order. The waitress set the coffee down, and Lenny nodded appreciatively. Ain't nothing like your evening coffee, Jess. Thanks. She smiled and headed towards the kitchens. I stared at my own coffee. It was just black, the way I had always liked it back in the day. Lenny was already halfway done with his by the time I took a few sips. You're slowing your roll a bit, Johnny. I haven't seen you let one of Jess's sit for long, Lenny said. Believe it or not, I like a creamer or two nowadays. You're kidding. Come on now. I swear, something about leaving the force made me drop straight coffee. Fair enough. I lost my taste for fried chicken the second I left my KFC job. Oh, come on, Lenny. That was your first job, 30 years ago? Still that fresh in your mind? Course it is. When you get as old as us, that's what starts happening. No use fighting nature, Johnny. I laughed, took another drink. Well, a black coffee for old time's sake doesn't hurt. That's the spirit, Lenny said. After a minute, Jess came back to our table. So, what'll it be then? Arthur's on the grill tonight. She whispered the last with a wink. Oh, hell, really? I thought he'd retired. Shit, well, I guess I'll have his special, Lenny said. Same here, even if it kills me, I said. No onions? Jess added. Right, thanks for reminding me. No onions if you would, I said. Coming right up. See you boys in a shake. She took our menus and headed off again. We drank our coffee for a bit, but I could tell Lenny was itching to say something. Being on the force that long together did that for our friendship. It was probably the something that he'd invited me here to say in the first place. All right, Lenny, spit it. What's on your mind? We haven't come to Philly's in almost a year. Something serious? You and Lena split? I said. No, nothing like that, John, but... Lenny paused. Look, I'm not really sure how to approach it all, so we'll start here. Just tell me first, how are you liking the security job? He said, gesturing at my uniform. I waited to speak until Lenny was taking a drink. Well, nothing like the force, but still satisfies the wandering masculine urge to protect shit. He nearly had to spit his drink as he laughed. Shit, Jonathan, he chuckled. Don't do that to me. I'm not in the market for a coffee enema. Jonathan? Haven't heard the full name since my childhood. I hate it. That's what you get for making me choke on coffee, Lenny said. I laughed as he cleaned up the drips. All right, fine. Job's great. Besides the kid I have to work with, real lay about this one. Worse than when we got that rookie on our team back then. This kid must be the owner's son to get away with all the weed he smokes on the job. On the bright side, though, it's high pay, low danger, and I get into a gaudy-ass museum free every day. Well, night. It's been a pretty interesting few months, I said. That's great to hear. I know the force did you dirty a few times, so you deserve to take it easy. I was happy at first when the company offered you the position. At first? I thought. Yep, I said. It'll be too soon if I ever have to fire a gun again, but job's just what I need. That's not to say we haven't had our oddities at the museum, though. Things falling without explanation. Strange figures seen in the halls. Like it's haunted? Lenny said. Hell no. Things happen all the time, Lenny. I ain't jumping on a haunted bandwagon. It's probably the same reason all the other stuff's going on. You heard that the owners are renovating the museum's basement, right? Right, I think I heard that, Lenny said. Well, security's had to be tight. They had to leave artifacts down there too big to move. Statues and stuff too fragile to dare. So we packed them up tight in crates and moved them aside to avoid damage from construction. Anywho, these damn teenagers have been getting in through tiny places like the vents and keep tagging shit, crates included. Would explain all the strangeness going on. Not hauntings. No way. Kids these days are something else, Lenny said. We'll catch them one of these nights. Got some new cameras installed too. Hopefully we'll get them tonight even. That's quite the adventure. Hope you catch them. Lenny paused, looking around. There was only one other patron nearby. Some guy in a trench coat and hat, like a 1950s detective. Caught a whiff of something smelly. It was like rotten eggs or something. It was gone in an instant. In seeing him, Lenny dropped his voice quieter. Say, do you remember that big arrest we made about 5 years back? It was for that big company that gave you this job. All those private guards? Yeah. Who was the arrest again? Miles West, was it? Yep, that's the one, Lenny said. I know you don't keep up with the news, but did you hear that guy escaped? Really? Yep. It was quite a magic trick he pulled too. Not a heroic dash for the fence or anything, he was just gone. Poof. Gone? When? Only a few months back. All these papers came in setting his release. It was all official. Judge signed the papers and all. They went through the system and he was let out. Weird thing was, as soon as he was released, someone realized that the papers were fake. No one remembered making them, and no Judge Frankenstein exists. Frankenstein? Hell, I could have told him that, no shit. Guy was like a goddamn fart in the wind. Pulled some kind of Shawshank miracle, Lenny said. I sat back in my chair. That trench coat guy was not so subtly looking at us too. Well, that's odd. Think they'll find him? I said. Lenny shook his head. They've tried, but not even a footprint so far, metaphorical or otherwise. Oh, here comes our specials. Trenchcoat looked away. Jess came back to our table. She set down 2 plates of tiered burgers, bacon-infused patties with hunks of fresh chicken breast too. Crispy buns seared with Arthur's secret sauce recipe. Fresh lettuce, tomato, pickle, and in Lenny's case, onion. 2 specials for you. No onions for you, John. Thanks, Jess, I said. Course. And Arthur sends an additional regard and hello to you old boys. She set down 2 small plates of his famous mini lava cakes. A foamy sponge of chocolate glazed with perfect frosting. All of it was some kind of supply drop from heaven as far as I was concerned. There was a reason we couldn't eat this as often at our age. He didn't, Lenny said with awe. I'll give him your compliments, Jess said with a smile. Please do. Thanks again, Jess. Can't wait to dig in, Lenny said. Course. Let me know if you need anything else. Might need to call an ambulance, but I'd die happy anyway, Lenny said. Oh, you too. Jess laughed as she tipped off our coffee and headed off. We enjoyed it in silence for a time. A bite of burger or a slice of lava cake. We both paused about halfway through. Doesn't get better than this, Lenny said. I'd have to concur. Heaven on a plate if you ask me. This could be my last meal. I paused. There was that look on Lenny's face again. All right, Lenny. We've known each other for a long-ass time. I can tell when you've got something on your mind. Come out with the rest of it, then. He nodded. Just trying to sort it all out. Don't want you to think I've cracked under precinct stress. It's fine, Lenny. Just give me the word. All right. Listen, that nervous look again. He glanced off to the side. That customer in a trench coat was reading a newspaper. Lenny's voice dropped to a whisper again. You can't tell this to anyone else. Got it? Sure as Arthur's cooking. More time for me to eat anyway, I said, hand up like I was swearing an oath. Took a bite of the delicious special. All right, this ain't a joke though. This is dangerous shit, John. The real kind. I brought up West because it's got something to do with him and your job. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I said with a mouthful. I'm getting to that. Keep your voice down and chew your food. Look, there ain't a good way to say this, so here it is. West found me. Thought he wanted to shiv me for putting him in prison, but he didn't. Found me while I was here one night on my lonesome, in fact. Just sat opposite of me like an old friend. My wife was out with her pals. You want to chat with the escaped? Did you report him? I whispered. That's just it. God damn it, I was going to, but he showed me something. Something I ain't likely to forget. Look, I copied it for you. Lenny slid one of those flash drive things across the table. The person in the trench coat turned their head slightly. Show it to no one and wear headphones, damn it. Listen up, 'cause I ain't gonna say all this again. You've gotta quit that job, John. What? Why would I? Listen, I said, and chew your damn food before you speak, for Christ's sake. Are you 10 years old? Company that had us arrest West, they gave you your job. They got West arrested for high evasion tax fraud or some kind of corporate stuff, right? He didn't do anything. He showed me the numbers in their own legal filing. He showed me proof. Didn't believe his numbers at first. Why would I? Then he showed me how to get into the files at work. I anonymously peeped into the files at work, and he was right. I ran into FBI walls, John. FBI. Then I ran into some even shadier security shit after that. West told me how to get past it. Turns out, all West really did to get arrested was trying to warn some folks about a dangerous job. A job with weird creatures. His family was involved. The company didn't appreciate his intrusion much. You keep talking about this company. Who are they anyway? I said. That's just it. No one knows their name, but they're out there. Most assholes that work for them just call them headquarters. They own a ton of stuff, including the museum you work at. I mean, come on, have you ever seen it open? It's been under construction for 10 years. Looks brand spanking new, though. I'm guessing you had to sign some kind of weird NDA, am I right? I had paused my next burger bite. He was right. There was some weird paperwork involved with my job. Finished the bite and swallowed before speaking. Lenny, you're sounding like one of those conspiracy theorists here, I said, trying to take this in. I know, which is exactly why I'm having a hard time getting this across to you. You know me, I don't invest anything in batshit theories. Right, I got you, Lenny. How about I put it this way? If that kind but misguided pothead you work with told you that he saw a murderous Bigfoot in the forest, would you believe him? Hell no, I wouldn't believe him. The only A grade he got was for being a dumbass. Right, you shouldn't believe him. What if a whole town told you? What if there were a bunch of unexplained missing persons? Unsolved forest murders? Unfiled photos? Would you believe it then? No, Lenny, and I'll say that I don't really see the point. That's right. You shouldn't believe it still. But what would you believe? You believe there's something going on, right? Bigfoot? Not an Ice Cube's chance in hell, but what is it then? What's the truth? I paused. Lenny got worked up as he continued, speaking faster. Something shady's going on with that company, John. They're doing something bad with that museum, and even West doesn't know what. His best guess? He said it was some kind of experiment. I just don't want you to get hurt. Not saying we need to play hero and tackle Mystery Bastards Incorporated, but I don't want you to fall off the map. West told me what happens to people that work for them, even for a morsel. Always ends the same, John. Death, disappearance. He said family go missing under them. West said we could contact him. He's got others who have had run-ins. He could protect us. No one knows who this company is or what they want. Best to steer clear the scent of shit, I say. All right, Lenny. All right. I hear you. Wouldn't be the first time we've seen something that lacks explanation. It's like that time we saw those two just disappear before our eyes. Remember? Lenny nodded. I remember. They wanted us just to keep quiet about what we saw. It's the same kind of thing, John, but on a whole nother level. Check out the drive. After that, you might even want to destroy it. You don't want it, though. Don't want to be connected. You can give it back. Just promise me you'll quit. Wasn't really sure what I believed, but Lenny was right. I knew he wasn't cracked. If he was worried about something, I had better listen, or it would be to my detriment. Should I just quit my new job because of that, though? I eyed the flash drive. I shouldn't look at this on the work computer then, I said. Lenny shook his head. I'll look at it once I get home tomorrow morning then. Sound fair? Good call. If I were you, I'd hand him my hat tonight, but I get why you can't. Just be careful, all right? I will. I checked my watch. What would one more night be after all? And speak of the devil, it's about my time to get going. Shift starts in 30. Hey, Jess. She walked over at my call. Yeah, Johnny? Think I'll need a box for these. First time in my life, I know. No way I'll finish it tonight, I said. We're getting old. I'll need one too. Breakfast tomorrow or something, Lenny said. Of course, boys. I'd give you your ticket, but it's on the house tonight. Arthur Street. She winked. Damn, but I could kiss that man, Lenny said. Wife wouldn't like that much, though, I suspect. We laughed and boxed up our meals. Still gave Jess and Arthur a good tip, despite the free meal. Gave our thanks to Arthur, too, as we headed out. Promised to come back and chat again sometime. Arthur was a cook and a half, and I hope he never retired. There's a reason people like him aren't in cooking shows. They'd win too easily. Lenny and I said our own farewells in the parking lot of Philly's Diner. Look, Johnny, if you feel you need help with something, go ahead and call my personal number. Don't worry about 911 unless it's super serious, Lenny said. You mean with this whole West business? Yeah, but even if you catch one of those teens, I can scare 'em straight. Just got paperwork tonight anyway. You'd be surprised how straight scaring putting handcuffs on a kid is. Don't even have to fake arrest him most of the time. Right, I remember. I think we even have some handcuffs at the museum, so I'll give it a shot. Thanks for the tip. Sure thing, Johnny, sure thing. Anyways, take care, Lenny said. You too, Lenny. He headed off to the precinct for the night, and I headed towards the museum. He gave me a long look as we left. It was one of fear. Something had really scared him, clear as a spring pond. Sometimes, too stubborn-headed for my own good, though. That gentleman in the trench coat left at the same time as us, too. Didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe I should have. I had my favorite rock station on in my Chevy, the only one that played at this hour. But all I could think about on the drive was what Lenny had told me. I had to quit. Strange organizations. Strange creatures. The flash drive in my pocket felt all the heavier for it. Maybe I should have listened to him and quit that night. I never was too good at listening. I got past the security gate with my badge and drove into the museum parking lot. It was all still under construction. Had been for 10 years, like Lenny had mentioned. But it may as well have been open for that long. It looked nicer than any other museum I'd ever seen. Local folks wondered why it was never opened, but eventually it just became a part of the background. It wasn't done, apparently. There were hazards. Whatever. I'd let them play their little game as long as they paid. Us employees always parked in a specific zone for security reasons. There were a total of 5 cars, including mine. Even 50 cars would have made this lot look empty, though. George and Cassandra were the day shift I was about to trade off with. Their cars were here. Cass had a blue car, George a green one. My partner was that guy named Fred. He was usually late, but it seemed that he had made it here early this time because his vehicle was here too. The last car was Theo, our janitor. I parked and walked across the empty lot with a satchel over my shoulder. I put the flash drive there too, to keep from sitting on it. All of the construction equipment was on the west side, where the basement work was being done. I didn't really know why they were working on it. I'd patrolled Basement 1 plenty of times before, and it seemed perfectly ready for exhibits. Hell, the medieval theme they did down there was virtually complete. Now it's a teenage tagging playground. Spray-painted smiley faces on the armor helmets, curse words, and so on. The front entrance to the museum consisted of rotating glass. I know, not even a shutter to block it at night either. Apparently, they were confident in the strength of the glass. It was oddly opaque. Couldn't really see through it. There was a button for the intercom and a scanner for badges. I pressed the button to let the day shift know that I was here. "John here. I'm coming in." I waited for their response. When they turned it on, I heard something drop and Cass cursed. "Put the rifle away, we'll work on fixing it later," Cass said in a furious whisper. "What? Just leave it here?" George said. "Put it in the damn locker and shut up. I'm on the intercom." She stopped whispering. "John, about time you got here." "I'm not late at all." "Just clamp it and come in here already. I want to go home," Cass said. I scanned my badge. The rotating glass unlocked for me and I pushed inside. I beheld the grand entrance hall once again. It was massive, bigger than a corporate lobby. The precinct from my old job on the force could fit inside of this room. Shiny floors, tidy exhibits, and a booth near the back. It was all tied together by the T-Rex skeleton in the center of it all. Cassandra sat at the booth. It was where future guests were supposed to get their tickets and such, but had become our little security booth. We had a break room in the back of it with a fridge and so on. Even had an arms locker back there. Unnecessary as it would be for museum security. The camera monitors had been set up on that desk too. It just made sense for us to camp out there. I walked up the rest of the way. "I'm no more than 5 minutes over," I said, checking my watch. 5 minutes that I could be sleeping," Cassandra said. All right. Where's Fred?" "Dunno. Saw him come in here about an hour ago," she said. "An hour? Since when is he that early?" I said. She shrugged. "What about George? You know?" "One sec. George!" Cass shouted towards the back. George came out of the back room. "Jesus, do you have to shout, Cass?" he said. "You wouldn't listen if I didn't. You seen Fred around?" "No. His car's outside, though." Cassandra shrugged. "He'll turn up. Anyways, we're out of here." "The keys are in the back. Camera monitors had to be shut down for an update. Should be done, though," George said. "Any kids come lurking?" I asked as they gathered their things and walked away. "Not a peep. Nighttime's their preferred mischief hour, though, and construction was working today. See you, John. Call us if you need something, but don't call us," Cassandra said. "Unless it's something batshit crazy," George said. The two of them packed up and left. Just like that, I was alone in the lobby. I watched their car lights leave the premises as the silence settled. After putting my leftovers in the staff fridge, I got on the intercom. "Fred, if you're smoking in the bathroom again, then get your ass to the lobby. Our shift is starting. If you don't, I'll make you walk basement 1. My voice echoed through the building. The last echoes died out, and I didn't hear a peep. I went into the back to gather the keys in a walkie. "Shit," I muttered. Cassandra forgot to plug in the walkies again. All of them were dead, but one was missing. I imagined that Fred had it. I plugged the others in. Maybe they'd be charged enough for later. I sat down in one of the office chairs and turned on the camera monitors. They were some new flashy system that Cassandra had to walk me through at least 10 times. What's next? Windows 10,000? XP was perfect, I muttered, logging in and launching the program. I sat back and reached into my bag as the camera feeds pulled up. I got today's newspaper and flipped it open. Another bakery sale. They should have Arthur make something for them, I said. I read the paper and sat around for another 30 minutes until I looked at the clock. Fred hadn't peeked a patchy whisker of his into the lobby. Damn it, where is that guy? Maybe he's on the cameras. All of the camera displays were lined up side by side. You could switch some of them, but all of the main cameras were visible on a triple monitor system. I could see Lobby 1 and 1.2, Jungle Exhibit 1, Egyptian Exhibit 1 and 1.2, Fossil Exhibit 1 and 1.2, Hallway Floor 2.1, and Basement 1 through 1.4. 3 of the basement cameras were of the warehouse and medieval displays, but one was of the server and electrical room down there. A kid messed with the power once when Cass and George left the security door open. I began flipping through the cameras with disinterest, until something caught my eye. I stopped on the Fossil Exhibit. A figure stood in the middle of the room, swaying back and forth. They looked like they were in some sort of large coat, but it was too dark to tell. They stood near the raptor skeletons by the entrance of the exhibit. My immediate thought that it was Fred, but something seemed off. Their face was shadowed by the darkness of the room, so I couldn't tell. I had to squint to be sure that they were there at all. That's when I realized, even laughed to myself a little. It was one of those damn teens. Already. Didn't expect a victory this early in the night. I flicked on the room-specific intercom. I was feeling a little lazy. Gave the kid a chance to just be scared off. Hey, little asshole. I can see you in there. You won't be tagging my walls today, no sir. Smile, 'cause you're on camera. The figure didn't react. They only stood there, swaying, staring at the 6 raptors. I growled and flipped it on again. If that's you, Fred, you had better turn around and wave at me before I call the cops. I waited, but nothing. Just that gentle sway back and forth. Call it a sixth sense, but something was clearly wrong here. Teen was probably high or drunk or some shit. I stood up and went to gather a flashlight and other supplies. This included handcuffs to fake arrest the kid, scare him straight. Then I had another idea. I picked up my smartphone and dialed Fred. I always forgot that it was an option. It rang for a while before he picked up. Hello? Fred muttered over the phone. It was the worst "I'm not high" voice I'd ever heard. That's all you've got? Didn't you hear my intercom call? No, sorry, man. You will be sorry if you keep this up, kid. We have a situation, and since you're feeling inclined towards your habits, it's got your name all over it. What situation? When I exited the back and glanced up at the camera, I saw someone run into the Egyptian exhibit. That's when I saw the other movements in the same exhibit, different camera. I made that one take up the whole screen so I could see it better. It was Fred, no doubt about it. He'd peeked out of the bathroom there like a kid in trouble. Probably heard the running. Hello? What situation? Fred said. There was a teen hanging out in the fossil exhibit. They ran into the Egyptian exhibit just now. Really? Fred muttered, as if I'd told him a killer from a slasher flick was wandering around. Stay there, I said with a sigh and hung up. Fred looked at his phone stupidly, and then went back into the bathroom. I shook my head as I stood up. I headed out of the booth and deeper into the museum. The Egyptian exhibit was upstairs, and I had to weave through the fossil exhibit to get there. They had some classic dinosaur skeleton casts in there. Most of the museum's lights were off to save power at night. That's why we had flashlights, but it made those skeletons a damn sight more intimidating. A small part of me thought of them coming to life and attacking. I chuckled and shook it off as I called out towards the end of the exhibit. Kid will likely hear me with the echo. Both kids. "Hey, kid. I saw you in here. No point in hiding now. Just come out so we can call Mom and Dad." No reply. I shone my light into the raptor skeletons, where the kid had originally been. The 5 raptors were the first gated section here, frozen in their state of hunting. They were that bigger kind instead of the little ones. There wasn't enough foliage in the display for a teen to hide in. Maybe someone lying down, but in shining my light around, I did see a black trench coat flung over one of the skeletons. Must have been the one the kid was wearing. But had I seen it somewhere else? It looked oddly familiar, but I couldn't place it. There was also a spray paint can dropped there. I raised an eyebrow. That coat looks familiar. But wait, hadn't there been 6 raptor skeletons? I thought. Guess not. I continued through the exhibit. I had to walk directly under the Brontosaurus, as that's where the path went. They had one of those playpens for kids too, the ones where they dig up the fake fossils. Hadn't been touched yet, of course. At least, it wasn't supposed to be. I had to look back at the sand when something caught my eye. It was usually a completely smooth surface, but there was a footprint in the sand instead. A dino footprint, a little bigger than my hand. 3 claws. Looked like the sand was disturbed after all. It was spilled out onto the ground too. Kid probably did that right before he booked it and left his coat behind. "All right, kid. If you could still hear me, I've had enough playing around. You've had your fun. Now come on out before I just call the cops. I've got a friend who would be happy to make the arrest." I shouted down the halls. As I made it to the other side, I moved my light to the right. I saw something else that caught my attention. It made me jump to see it. One of the raptor skeletons was in the Triceratops exhibit, frozen in mid-leap. What the hell? I looked back before the Brontosaurus. Has it always been there? I couldn't remember. Maybe that was just the 6th one that I had been thinking of. I frowned and continued into the Egyptian exhibit. Did that kid move the skeleton somehow? I mused. The bathrooms were right there. It didn't take long to smell Fred's presence. He couldn't even get the good stuff, apparently. "Fred, get out here already," I called. I could hear him laughing in there. I sighed and went in. Every exhibit has their own walk-in bathrooms that were themed after their respective location. This one was dressed in gold filigree with Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the walls. Wouldn't be surprised if it translated to Palace of Shit or something. There were even gold-colored toilets in here. I saw Fred washing his hands at the sink, giggling to himself at some sort of gaming video. "Hey, Fred, come on, shift started." He nearly leapt out of his boots. This caused him to knock his phone into the sink. He cursed and fished it out in a hurry. Luckily, it seemed he had a pretty thick case on that thing. "Jeez, man, you scared me," he cried. "I told you I was coming. Our shift started. Plus, there's a hooligan floating about. Let's go already," I said. Just then, the person in the video shouted, "Let's go! Like and subscribe if you enjoyed that 360 no-scope." "The shift started, but I got here early," Fred said. "You did, and time ran out. I want you to walk basement 1 again to make sure this graffiti artist doesn't escape through the vents again. If you have to, chase them out, but we've got to catch them if we can, got it?" Okay. "Is that walkie charged?" I said, pointing at the one on his belt. "Yeah." "Good, give it here. Swing by the lobby to get your own on the way to the basement." He handed it to me. It must have been the one that Cassandra or George were using. It was near full charge. I waited for Fred to get moving, but the kid was just staring at me. "That'll be $20 for the show. Get out of here already," I snapped. Fred nodded and waddled off. Kids these days. Fred went off into the fossil exhibit, while I split off and wandered around the ancient Egyptian one. I checked all of the corners for a hiding teenager or a tagged Tutankhamun until I only had one place left. I could hear something like whispering inside the main chamber of the exhibit. I kept my flashlight low to surprise the kid. I blocked one of the only obvious exits into the chamber as I spoke. "Hands up, kid, I've got you." I shone my flashlight inside, and sure enough, a teenager was sitting on the ground here. He looked up as my light met his eyes. He held up a hand in defense, hiding behind a replica of an ancient Egyptian casket. Long hair draped over the eyes, dark clothes, and even a chain on his hip. "Don't eat me," he squealed. I let my light down. "Are you smooth in the head? I'm not going to eat you." I paused as the kid ran up to me with fear in his eyes. "Thank God, dude, I thought you were that thing," he said. "Thing? What thing?" "Didn't you see it? One of those skeletons is moving. It chased me down." "That's enough now. You're trying to distract me, aren't you? You're coming with me and we're calling your parents." I interrupted. The kid's fear parted for frustration. "You don't get it. Some guy in a trench coat turned into one of those things. It chased me around the other dinosaurs." "Sure, kid, sure. That's a pretty story and all, but we're done with your vandalism. I bet you imagined it if anything really had happened. Do you need to be under arrest or can we cooperate?" I held out the handcuffs for his inspection. The kid humped and folded his arms. "Fine, dude, just get me out of here. Your funeral." Pulled out my phone. "Who's the best parent to contact right now?" "My mom," he said. "What's your mom's number then?" "Why, you gonna ask her out, weirdo?" he snapped. "I thought you wanted to get out of here." "Fine. How about 1-800 go screw yourself? You don't even believe me, asshole. We could die." I sighed. "You want me to call the cops instead, kid? You'll be meeting with them one way or the other, but I'm giving you the easy way out here. Imagine your mom's reaction if the cops brought you home at 2 a.m. Kid deflated a bit. He soon gave me the number, and I dialed. It started to ring. "What's your name?" I asked. "Ray Halliburton," he muttered. The phone picked up. "Hello? Who's calling at this hour?" A woman's voice. "Hello, have I got Mrs. Halliburton on the line?" "Yes, this is she." "My name's John. I apologize for the morning hour, ma'am. I work for the museum under construction downtown, and I have your son Ray here. He was caught just now breaking into the building as a part of the ongoing attempts to vandalize it." "Put him on," Miss Halliburton growled. I didn't fight that tone. "Hi, Ma." He was immediately interrupted by a lecture. He rolled his eyes as she went on, shoulders hunched. Eventually, he handed the phone back as I heard, "Give the phone to John." "I'm so sorry for his belligerence. You said that this has been happening a lot. I could likely point to a few other suspects given the people my son chooses to hang out with." "Not a problem, ma'am. We can put your suggestions in the police report. We just don't want these kids to get hurt in our construction zone," I said. "I'll come and get him right now. I don't know what he's thinking. He has school tomorrow. Well, today," she said. "Just hit the buzzer by the security gate and we'll let you in. We'll file the police report in the morning." "Thank you very much, officer," she said. That phrase brought back memories. "See you soon, ma'am." She hung up, and I pointed. "Let's go then. Mommy's involved now," I said. I escorted the kid back to the lobby where Fred sat. Oddly enough, we weren't attacked by any skeletons on the way. "Here's our culprit." He didn't look up, and instead had his opened-mouth stare locked on his phone while eating Cheetos. I just blinked once. "Fred." He jumped in his seat and fumbled his phone. It dropped on the desk. "Jesus, man, you're sneaky." "Wait, who's that?" "This is the situation I told you about. Mommy's on her way now to pick him up." Kid humphed. Fred smiled at that and chuckled. "We've all done it, kid. I just didn't get caught back in my day, Fred said, and tried to toss a Cheeto into his mouth. It missed and hit the floor. Let her in when she buzzes the gate, I said. Fred nodded awkwardly and looked back at his phone. I sat the kid down and we waited. Kid was quiet as a crypt the whole time, but kept looking over his shoulder. We mostly watched the cameras. That was when I saw something odd. The foliage in the jungle exhibit was moving, the big leaves bouncing as if something was passing through them. I leaned in for a closer look. That was when the gate buzzed. Hi, it's Rebecca Halliburton. I'm here to pick up Ray. Righty-ho, mademoiselle, Fred said as he buzzed her in. Thanks, she said. We could see her car on the camera coming in. I brought the kid up to the rotating glass and was getting ready to scan my badge when he pulled my arm. Look, man, I didn't just come here to tag. We heard this place was haunted or something and wanted to see. We heard that's why it isn't open. I didn't expect to see what I saw. If you know what was best, you get out too. I laughed and took him outside. His mom was already parked and stomping down the lot. Don't believe me? Go look at the other raptors. There should be a body there. I stopped. My immediate thought was, a body? Why didn't you say that sooner? But then, his mom came by and grabbed his arm. Thank you. John, was it? We'll await the report tomorrow. Today, she said. No problem. Take care, Mrs. Halliburton, I said. She marched him off, and he was subjected to another lecture. He looked back at me then, as I turned to go back inside. A body, he says? Now that would be quite something. Kid was likely just pulling my leg anyway. When I got back in and settled, I just sat for a while and watched the cameras some more. Even in thinking the kid was just trying to mess with me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was odd. The things that Lenny had said and that. That's when I remembered. I had seen that trench coat somewhere. It was with Lenny, the diner, of course. That stranger was wearing a coat that looked almost exactly like it. Had it really been that kid? No, they were too tall. Gonna do a sweep, I said to Fred. And remember, you're supposed to go to basement 1. Right. Sorry, man. I headed off into the depths of the museum again. I went into the fossil exhibit and shone my light around the raptor den. The coat was still there. I thought that I caught a whiff of something odd. Was someone cooking bad eggs? I was about to climb into the raptor den when I heard something. It was a crash, like a metal pipe falling over from afar. I looked towards where the sound had come from. The end of the fossil exhibit. Don't like this one bit, I muttered. Eventually, I built up the courage to creep towards the jungle exhibit. The entrance into it started with a Mayan-looking archway in the Egyptian exhibit. I passed under it and the plastic flaps to immediately feel the temperature difference. Humidity was like walking through a spiderweb of moisture. The plants in here were alive after all. There were 2 main paths here. One went upstairs into a longer jungle exhibit, and the other headed down to basement 1. I followed the latter path and shone my flashlight along the edges. Railings blocked off tourists from getting into the exhibits. What I saw there explained the noise. One of the railing pipes looked like it had been pulled off and was laying in the center path. It was near where I had seen plants move on camera. I shone my light on it. That's when some of the plants shuffled. Is that you over there, Fred? What did I say? Get back down to basement 1. The intercom clicked on in reply. I am working, man. I'm in the lobby right now, Fred whined. You're still in the lobby. I aimed my attention at the shuffling plants. Who's out there? If you're a friend of that kid, you're gonna be under arrest. His mommy already had to come take him home, I said. Leaves slightly closer to me shuffled. I followed the progress with my light. I saw a silhouette of something, Heard them move, too. Sounded like some kind of rattling. I wasn't a real cop anymore. I didn't have a gun. For some reason, I wish I did. I mean, by some weird idea the owners had. The museum had that weapons locker in case of emergencies. I don't know what constitutes one, though. One of those in a holster would have made me feel safer. Hey, come on now. No more funny business. My voice was a little shaky. No answer, just a closer shuffle. I leaned in further, slowly taking steps towards the sound. Johnny, a new voice said. I flipped around like a cat with its tail stepped on. What the? Oh, Theo. Scared the bejesus out of me. I told you already, Johnny is my forced name. Go by John, I said. Right. Sorry, John, for the scare and the mix-up, Theo said. No real harm done. Say, have you seen another kid running around here? Already caught one tonight. Shuffling had stopped. Caught one, huh? Good for you, good for you. Can't say that I've seen any others. Thought I should let you know that I'm cleaning up after Fred in that bathroom, though. I'll be heading out after that. Right. Thanks, Theo, I said. He went back towards the Egyptian exhibit with mop in hand. I stared at where the floor had been shifting. I waited a minute, but nothing happened. Well then, guess it was the air conditioner or something. I would be embarrassed to admit that I peeked carefully into the plants as I passed. What I saw made me jump out of my skin, though. I stumbled back a few steps and nearly tripped on one of the stones of the path. I held my light there. The hell? The damned raptor skeleton was in the bushes. You trying to make a Ben Stiller out of me? Moving skeletons around. I'm done with your pranks, I yelled out, hoping that the intruding kid could hear me. I saw that movie once. It was funny, Fred said over the intercom. Fred? Stop listening to my personal conversations. Go walk basement 1 already before this second kid gets away, I snapped. Sorry, boss, Fred said. I'm coming back there in 30. You better be doing your job by 3. I shook my head and went up the path. Kept looking back over my shoulder, too. I tried not to think about how heavy those raptor casts actually were, and how even I couldn't move them alone. I wandered around the museum for a while. Didn't see any more kids stacking the walls, to my discomfort. I got back to the lobby around 3 in the morning. When I made it back, Fred was nowhere to be seen. Finally, went off to basement 1, I said to myself. I did a quick flip through the cameras, but saw nothing. Even toggled through the basement, but didn't see Fred. I heard steps as someone walked out of the exhibits. Hey, John, heading out for the night, Theo said, and went into the back room. Found a trench coat in the fossil exhibit. It was covered with something stinking, though, so I left it. You know, I don't want to tamper with potential vandalism evidence. I laughed. Fair enough, Theo. Saw that coat, too. I'll see what it's about, I said. Theo put on his own coat and waved as he left. You take care now. See you tomorrow, Theo said. Thanks. See you, old-timer. It was Theo's turn to laugh as he left the building. When he did, I saw 2 other figures pass him and enter the lobby through the rotating glass. I was about to give my scripted shout about private property when I recognized them as Cassandra and George. This had better be good, Cass shouted from afar. I'd expect the both of them to be in nightgowns at this hour, but they were back in uniform. Cass? George? What are you doing here? I said as they approached. I'd like to know that too. You called us in, so why are we here? Cass snapped. I didn't call you in. The hell are you talking about? No, it was Fred. He said you wanted us to come in and help with a situation, George said with a yawn. I planted a palm on my face. He really called them over that. He also sounded sick or something too, kind of burbly. Weirdly coherent though. George continued. Well, I sure as hell didn't call you in. Honest. Wouldn't want to wake the sleeping dragon here, I said. Cass looked like she'd punch me for that one. Just kidding. Look, I don't know if Fred just thinks he's funny or something. We had a teenager wandering around, but we caught him and sent him home with his mom. Filing the report tomorrow. Haven't seen any others on the cameras yet, but there's a second one somewhere. Fred's probably just smoking in one of the bathrooms again. Why don't you just walkie him so we can find out what's going on? George said. I'll try, but you two didn't plug them in all day. This one's the only charged one. Wouldn't be surprised if the one Fred grabbed is dead. He should be down in basement 1, but he was smoking in the Egyptian exhibit earlier, I said. Can't you just call him on your phone? George said. Cass took hers from her pocket and dialed him. She hung up after 30 seconds. Voicemail? I said. She nodded. Well, let's find this kid and strangle him together then, Cass said. Sounds good to me. Go grab some flashlights and we can get started. I'll go check in the Egyptian exhibit, I said. Fine. I'll check in the fossil and meet you to check the jungle afterwards. George, you get the lobby in the basement, Cass said. What? Come on, George said. Cass gave him a look. I'll search the basement bathrooms, George said, deflated. Good. Let's go then so I can go back to sleep. We went our separate ways. I went all the way to the Egyptian exhibit again for the 3rd time and headed to the bathrooms. It was dead quiet. Unnaturally quiet even. Like when a tiger stalks its prey. I peeked inside both bathrooms, but didn't see a damn hair of Fred. I left and waited for Cass. She came up to me about 5 minutes later. Anything? I said. Not hide nor hair. Kid's slippery, gotta give him that. By the way, did you see that trench coat hanging on a raptor? It smells to high heaven. Yup. That kid from earlier left it when I sent him home. Probably put a stink bomb in it, I said. Speaking of the raptors, one of them is missing from the den. Where did it go? She said. I think the kid rolled it around as a prank. Really? You think a kid could move that thing? What else could it be? I said. I don't know, do I look like I could guess? Hell, maybe it just walked. Cass trailed off. Her grim determination turned into sheer horror. She stared past me and whispered, What the hell is that? I looked over to where she was staring. There was an oddly shaped shadow emerging from the jungle entrance, plastic flaps pushing away from it. My heart skipped a beat before it froze. Surprised I didn't have a heart attack. The thing rattled loudly as it moved. Are you seeing this? Cass whispered. Wish I wasn't, I managed. It was one of the raptor skeletons, moving around on its own like zombie Jurassic Park. The thing was detached from its base. It bowed as if on the trail of something. Its tail swished from side to side, bones rattling like a wind chime. There was a shining red liquid on its claws and teeth, too. It faced us, and our flashlights were on it, but it didn't seem to notice. Cass and I could only stare in stunned disbelief as it wandered into the Egyptian exhibit. We took cover and waited. It was all we could do. Why hadn't I just listened to Lenny? Cass and I waited for that raptor to come out. He could probably see my pulse racing under my skin. We waited, sweating in silence. We could hear it walking around in there. Eventually, it did wander back out into the open and into the jungle exhibit again. The blood on the skull smeared against the plastic flaps this time. If it kept heading down the lower path, it would reach basement 1. Cass and I looked at each other with the same realization. I nodded and shakily pulled out my walkie. The sound rang over Cass's walkie as I said, George, are you there? Shit is going wild and you're not going to believe us. You could be in some real magical goddamn danger here. We waited for a response. George, this isn't a joke. Pick up, Cass said. Just then, her walkie died. Shit, she muttered. Meant his was probably dead too. She used her cell phone and said nothing as it rang. I heard the voicemail line come up. Hello. Please leave a message for... George Reed? Yeah, 1 second, Mom. Cass cursed and hung up. We should go try to get him out of there. Fred's probably down there too, I said. Hell no, we should get out of here right now, Cass said. Didn't you see? That thing had bloody claws. George won't answer. Doubt they're still alive. This better be a nightmare or my therapist will get an earful. Come on, Cass. We can't chance leaving those 2 kids. Let's at least look at the cameras to see if they're there. Then we can go, I said. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Fine. Damn it, fine. You should really develop some self-preservation. Crept carefully back towards the lobby. Every exhibit seemed like a threat now, especially in the fossil exhibit. That smell from near the trench coat was getting worse. Rotten eggs and flatulence straight from Satan's bowels. It was so bad, we stopped in our tracks. Ugh, what is that? It's way worse than before, Cass said, plugging her nose. I shone my light near the trench coat again. I looked really closely this time. That's when I managed to see the barest peak of a hand sticking out from the foliage. It had been there before. Look, someone's in there, I said. You're right. Hello? No answer. Cass and I climbed over the railing, feeling more than a little nervous about the other raptor skeletons at our backs. Under the leaves was a rotting body. Smell was from it for sure. No one we recognized, just some guy that looked several days dead. That's when the smell became familiar. Feel like I had caught a whiff of it before. It'd been weaker then, but the trench coat was the same too. Had this been the guy at the diner? If he had smelled the same, was he dead then too? We should go, I said. Let's check the cameras and figure out what to do. Cass nodded. We walked back towards the lobby. Didn't feel like carrying a rotten corpse. Did you see? That skeleton acted like it couldn't hear or see us. We had our lights on it and everything, Cass said. I guess that makes sense. Not like it has eyes or ears. Maybe it just wasn't hungry. True, but that blood on it must have some kind of senses if it caught someone, she said. We halted when we heard a loud sound. There was a huge crash of sorts. It was impossible to tell where it had come from, but it was from deeper in the museum. The hell was that? I said. How should I know? Damn it, I wish I had a gun. My first stop is going to be the arms locker, Cass said. We kept going and managed to make it to the lobby. Cass was true to her word and fetched us both a 9mm from the back. I scrolled through the cameras in the meantime, watching each angle of Basement 1 that I could. Cass watched the screens beside me. There was a scream on camera too. It was off the frame, but it sounded close to it. Could even hear the barest echoes of it in the lobby. Couldn't tell if it was Fred or George though, even when a figure ran into frame. They rushed across the warehouse area as I flicked on the intercom. George? Fred? Is that one of you? I said. The figure stopped and looked around. When they spoke, I knew it was George.
John, we're down here. There's...
I know, George. We're coming down to get... I stopped as the raptor leapt from outside the frame. It tackled George. That was it. Slashed him bloody right before our eyes. I was so stunned, I didn't even realize that I had the intercom button on. God damn it all, I said. You still want to go down there? No point now. Cass snapped. Our booming voices echoed over the basement loudspeaker. The raptor stopped what it was doing and turned its head towards us. I let go of the button. Cass's eyes had gone wide when she saw the thing turn its head. Had it felt the speaker vibrations or something? I didn't have much time to think about it. A horror like I've never seen happened next. Something emerged from the raptor skeleton. A sort of shadowy essence that trickled from it. It was too dark to see it whole, but something formed from that essence. A strange shape, to say the least. I didn't get a good look at it. I didn't get a chance as it turned to the body. The essence seeped into George. He began to twitch. He soon stood, looked at the camera, and ran off screen. Seemed like the body was barely staying together after the raptor treatment. We watched in silent horror. "Is it coming here?" Cass whispered. I flicked through the cameras. I didn't see anything until I went back to Basement 1 again. George jumped through the window of the server and electrical room in Basement 1. He stood up and watched the camera. "George?" I said hesitantly over the intercom. He smiled, then grabbed the large electrical levers, 2 at a time, and pulled. Cameras soon shut down. The lights went with them. Cass and I stood in the dark. All we had were our flashlights. "Screw it." Cass turned and went into the back room. She opened the arms locker. When she came out, she had a large weapon. "Is that a goddamned assault rifle?" I said. "Didn't know we had that kind of thing back there." "We don't. This one's mine," Cass said. "What? Why'd you bring that to work?" She sighed. "Does that matter now? George was helping me fix it." "So you're going to shoot him with it?" I said. "No, something else in mind. I'll do what I have to, though. That thing isn't him anymore. I don't want to. We got a problem here, or can we get going?" "No problem," I said. She ran off towards the front doors of the lobby with flashlight bobbing. I went with her. All of this made me realize how out of shape I was. Cass was already pushing and pulling the rotating glass when I got there. It was locked tight. She bashed at it several times with the butt of the rifle, to no avail. "Damn it! What do we do?" I said. "Stand back." Cass took several steps back, and so did I. She aimed her gun and took multiple shots. The sound echoed throughout the whole museum. Red light rays bounced from the glass and ricocheted into the ceiling and walls. I accepted my urge to duck down and cover. All of it would have made my ears ring if not for my years in the force, and had to wait a second to see what our flashlights tried to tell us. "Just a scratch? They never told us it was bulletproof," Cass said. The glass had only a small set of cracks, a sort of opaque finish a bit damaged to let us see the outside, but the glass itself only had minuscule cracks. She was aiming again before I spoke. "Wait. That thing will get to us before we get through. It'll hear the shots. It didn't seem like it could hear us earlier, but if it is George now..." "What else are we supposed to do, stand here and wait to be ambushed then?" she said. There was a sort of skittering far off, then a sort of electrical zapping sound. We must have stood there in silence for 30 whole seconds. After that, a few random lights in the computer monitor turned on at the desk. We exchanged a glance and looked at the badge scanner for the rotating glass. It was still off. Without any other options, we walked back towards the computer. The scattered lights made the T-Rex skeleton look rather intimidating. Once we got there, we logged onto the PC. In pulling up the camera software, we realized that only a few cameras were active. The rest said offline. The one on screen now was a warehouse view of Basement 1. I could just make out 2 crates that held statues stored down there. I'd only seen them once. I think one was a replica of that Greek angel, the one with no head or arms. Was it Sam of Trace? I couldn't remember. The other was that guy mid-discus throw. There was also a light in the middle of the frame. A lit little rectangle. "Is that a cell phone?" I muttered. "John, that thing is there," Cass said, pointing near the corner. I had to squint, but I saw it. There was a figure in there, swaying back and forth. It was just like that figure from earlier in the day. Night. Is that George? Cass said. Is it that thing? There was someone swaying like that earlier. The fossil exhibit by the raptors, I said. What? And you didn't call the police? Cass snapped. I didn't know it was Hell's escaped demon. I just thought it was that kid. Cass sighed. Call Fred then, she muttered. His walkie's probably dead. Use your goddamn phone, Jesus. Kid's got one for sure. We can see if that's his. All right. I dialed Fred. Once it connected, that phone we saw on the screen lit up. The camera picked up audio of a little retro ringtone coming from it. It vibrated on the ground. That's that. What now? I said. It got him then. That's all we can assume. We need to find another way out of here, John. It wants us to go down there, Cass said. I didn't reply and dialed Lenny. Who are you calling now? Cass said. Hold on. You said that I should have called the cops, right? Should have called them earlier. It rang for a little while. I knew he'd be up, probably still doing paperwork. Oh, hey, Johnny. What's up? He said. Lenny, something odd's going on. Got a bad feeling. There was a pause. Work? Yeah. Some strange shit. Nothing I've ever seen before. A fossil is walking around and hunting us like rabbits. It already got someone. It turned into them, Lenny. It tackled them like a bobcat. Probably got another one too, I said. What? Breaking up? Want me to head over? Lenny, hello? I glanced at my phone. The call had disconnected. Who's Lenny? What just happened? Cass said. Cop friend of mine. Call disconnected. Service drop? Cass said. No, I still have service. Well, call him again or call 911. Tell them to bring the National Guard. I tried to call him again. Dialing, it said. I waited. It hung up as if I'd pressed the button. Tried 911 to the same result. Nothing? Let me try, Cass said. She pulled out her phone and tried 911. Hers rang for longer, but the same thing happened. She slapped it down and tried the wired phone on the security desk. No power to it. Cass's face went from frustration to worry. What the hell are we supposed to do now? I said. Don't know. Feels like someone's trying to keep us in here, Cass said. That gave me a shiver. We glanced at the camera. Asshole was still just standing there, swaying. Even if we didn't care about the kid, we've got to get the power back on to get out of here, I said. How did these vandalizing teens get in? Cass said. Basement 1 vents. Cass planted a palm on her face. She seemed to be weighing our options. Well, no elevator with the power out. Guess we're using the stairs, she said. Lenny's words just kept coming back. Even that damn teen was right. At least that kid got out. So that was that. We marched towards the stairs, opening the heavy doors. The sound immediately echoed from downstairs. It was a scream, no mistake about it. Fred, Cass whispered to me. We just shone our lights down there, stared until Cass bumped me forward. The closer we came to basement 1, the more off things felt. Everything was dead quiet after that scream. That made me wince at the squeak of the basement 1 doors open. I flicked my light around the warehouse. Cass, you see that? I said, pointed off to the side. One of the raptor skeletons, she said. It had bloody teeth and claws, but it looked like it had fallen apart. The legs were smashed and the rest of it was piled on the ground. It wasn't moving. We exchanged glances, and I nodded. Cass tossed something from the ground at the bones. Nothing. Didn't move a damned inch, just as nature intended. Everything else in the room looked normal. We crept over to the spot where the camera from earlier was aimed. The guns were in our hands. Sure enough, that phone was on the ground over there. I powered it on and saw Fred's face as a lock screen. Kid uses his own mug for a background? Cass said. I shook my head and put it in my pocket. Fred, you around? I said, too quiet for anyone but Cass to hear. Something echoed off to the side. It was like wooden planks falling over. "We're armed, asshole. Show yourself unless you want us to perforate you. That includes you, Fred," Cass shouted. No response. As we crept along, I kept catching whiffs of a coppery smell. Blood. It was combined with that rotten egg scent. We soon found the blood trail. I shone my light on it, and saw that it was not just shiny and red, but black and chunky like rotten blue cheese. At the end of the trail was a body. It laid motionless on the ground. Sores and gouges were all over them like a butchered turkey dinner. They didn't react when I shone the light. "That's George," Cass said. We went to check on him. He was very dead. Grayish skin and that god-awful stench. Long staring eyes too. Needless to say, things had just ramped up. That made 2 bodies. I didn't really know how to react to it all. "It was stupid to come down here. We need to go," Cass said. I got my phone out and tried to call the cops again. Same thing as before. I had service, but the call hung up before it could even connect, like a ghost was playing a prank on us. "Fred?" I said warily. "Are you alive?" Nothing. I swiveled my light over the warehouse again. The construction equipment was scattered around, along with crated up artifacts and half-built medieval displays. I heard a sound like broken glass being stepped on behind me. I almost tripped on George by trying to turn around. Fred showed up in my flashlight. He stood right where the camera could see him, but his back was facing us. "Jesus, Fred, you scared me shitless. Don't sneak up on a man," I said. "My apologies to you, John," Fred said in a calm, airy voice, not turning to face us. "It's fine, just tell us, did you see that thing anywhere?" I asked. "That thing? What could you possibly be referring to, John?" It sounded like he said that through a growing smile. "John?" Cass said warily, backing up. "Something's not right. We've got to go." I tried to get a better look at him. His uniform was stained by something dark. He started swaying back and forth. Cass was almost to the stairwell. "You should listen to your companion, Johnny," Fred said, smiling wide as he turned towards us. His face was a horror riddled with wounds. It looked like a side of his cheek had been torn off by claws. He was like a zombie straight from some apocalyptic flick. My flashlight glinted against the wet flesh and exposed teeth. "Make that 3 bodies. Jesus H. Christ," I muttered. My eyes went wide and Fred charged before I could react. I fired several times, but it was Cass's assault shots that actually slowed him down. Didn't help that my aim was out of practice, too. I pushed away from him, and we fell into a medieval display as he tackled me. He started to claw like some mad animal when we were on the ground. I had to protect my head with my arms as I looked around. Scratches cut fire. I was running out of time. I pulled some kind of sword from the display and swung. The sword lodged into Fred's neck and he flew backwards, collapsing. He fell off to the side with a gurgled chuckle. I scrambled away from him. I watched as he laid there on the ground. He bled, twitched. Shit, I sputtered. Fred just kept twitching and chuckling. "John, let's go already." "We can't. We have to get the power on first. Where are the breakers again?" I said. "I don't know. Do I look like I'd remember that?" "All right, come on, John, think." The breakers were obviously down here. We had to get the lights back on if we wanted to open the rotating doors. I just wish adults could fit in the vents out of here. Wait. I think the breakers are on that side. I'll keep him down with gunfire. Go, Cass said, pointing. I nodded. My run was closer to a limp as I went to the other side of the room. Cass stayed behind to watch Fred's body. I tried to use my badge to get into the security office, then remembered that the power was out. I cursed, but saw that the large window here was shattered and bloody. That's right, George had jumped through it. Apparently the owners didn't think this needed bulletproof glass. I carefully stepped through. Most of the electrical levers inside were off, so I flipped the rest back on one by one. Some of the bulbs flickered, and a couple even popped. For the most part, though, the power seemed to be back on. I went back out and made a break for the stairs, bleeding all the while. Fred tried to get up, but Cass filled him full of rounds. The body slumped back down and didn't move. Cass started moving towards the stairs once she saw me heading there. She was already to the stairwell once I reached Fred. I heard him call out as I passed. John, help me, he said weakly. I made my last mistake. I turned. Fred, you're alive? I said. John, come on, Cass yelled, hand on the stairway door. Fred wasn't alive for much longer. His flesh burbled, began to rip like a paper bag. Something ejected itself from him, crawling out like a demonic moth from a fleshy cocoon. The silhouette from earlier had only hinted at the horror before me. The creature was a chaotic organization of limbs topped by a faceless head. No, it seemed to have a face, just one like latex flesh had been pulled over the top of. Its laugh became a dark little hum, like it was singing a music box tune. Holy Mother of God, I stammered. A strange sound came from behind the stretched skin. It sounded like a word.
God.
I ran. Could hear the thing chasing me as I did so. Its limbs smacked the ground like a meaty spider. It was gaining. Surely it would catch me. Then I heard it turn off to the left. It was crawling on the ceiling above me, but not for long. It leapt and landed in front of me to block my exit. I held place and fired several shots when Cass was out of the direct line of fire. She did the same. A sort of purplish ooze leaked from the Swiss cheese wounds, but it didn't seem too bothered. What do you want? I said, not really expecting an answer.
I want you to smile.
It said in a gurgling, demonic tone. I darted to the side and pushed on. It seemed to wait a moment, as if giving me a head start. Then, hell was on my heels. I was too out of shape for this. The pistol was slippery in my sweaty palms. I passed one of the crates that held one of the statues inside. The creature crawled over it instead of tackling me. It ripped the wood free and revealed the discus guy, coalesced into the statue. A fleshy appendage grew out from where the statue was missing an arm. The stone crackled into mobile shape and began to chase me. Cass was inside the stairwell, waving me inside. When I made it to the stairs, the creature threw the marble discus in its hand. It crashed into me, sent stone shards flying like grenade shrapnel. My breath was shoved out. I felt something snap. My arm? I was on the ground. I couldn't move. My vision was wavering. Cass was trying to drag me through. It was my last bit of strength, but I forced in enough air to speak and grabbed her arm. My bag. Flash drive. Say goodbye for me. Lenny. I managed. She was panicked and wide-eyed. The statue was stomping over. She squeezed my hand and nodded. The last thing I saw was Cass firing her shots at the statue, taking a step back and running up the stairs. As she turned the corner, she spared one last look at me. Damn me, but I smiled. At least someone was getting out. I couldn't have lived with myself anyway if I hadn't looked for Fred. I was blacking out from the pain after that. I regained focus to see the statue closing in. It loomed over me, shadowed out the flickering light. Then, the stone crumbled. All that was left was that monster again. The mass of appendages slurped. The three eyes stared into me. The mouth, to the surface, smirked. I fired my gun as many times as I could. There was only 3 more shots before the clip ran dry. The trigger only let out a click, click, click. The monster leaned in close. It didn't seem to care about the holes leaking its viscera, or the eye I had shot out.
Smile.
it said. As Lenny got closer to the museum, someone flew past him. Blink and you would have missed the blue of their vehicle. "Damn, is McDonald's about to close?" he muttered. Would have pulled them over if John wasn't in danger. He didn't know how he knew, but he knew. Lenny eventually arrived at the museum himself. There was a pesky gate blocking entry to the parking lot, so he had to park there and climb it. Felt like the old days in the force, having to chase down shoplifting teens. He began the walk through the parking lot, soon coming to the entrance to the museum. He recognized John's car in the lot ahead, the old Chevy he never let go of. It wasn't the only vehicle here. There were 2 others nearby that he assumed were co-workers. From the parking lot, everything seemed fine, but then Lenny walked up to the place. The rotating glass doors were all cracked in places, made the opaque finish see-through. One panel even had pockmarks, as if someone had peppered bullets into it. Sure enough, there were a few discarded shells on the inside. What the hell happened in there? It was that thick glass, so probably bulletproof. It was an odd choice for a museum. Lenny pressed the buzzer near a sort of card scanner. "John, you in there? Everything all right?" There was a long moment before the door beeped and Lenny pushed inside. This place had always looked gaudy from just the outside, but the inside surprised Lenny all the same. Looked like some old manor house with all the needless finery included. "Damn the rich folks," Lenny muttered. He looked around the lobby until he spotted John near the back. He was sitting behind the desk, gesturing for Lenny to come. "You're gonna make me walk all the way over there?" "Fine, I'm coming," Lenny said. This place was so big, it took some time to get there. Lenny placed his hands on the security desk as he arrived. John was there. He was watching the camera monitors and eating his leftovers from Phillies. He smiled as Lenny came closer. Looked like there was something on his clothes. He was looking a bit pale too, but Lenny didn't stare. He did raise an eyebrow though. "You sounded pretty shook up earlier, but you're all fine and comfy when I get here? Want me to fetch you some goddamn sweatpants, Your Highness?" John laughed, but it was an odd sort of chuckle. It was as if one of the parts to laugh was broken. "I am completely fine, Lenny. A mistake was all it was. It was just one of those children. I scared them off the property." Voice sounded weird too. Lenny didn't like this. John even waited until he swallowed to talk. "So why didn't you call me back? Why are there bullet shells in the lobby?" "I lost self-service. It happens here all of the time with the construction going on," John said. Lenny kept quiet for another moment, but John said nothing about the bullets. Lenny remembered what West had said. Something like, if things didn't seem right, run, even if you have to leave someone behind. If he left now, was he leaving John behind? He knew how to test it. John hated his full name. When Lenny did speak again, his voice was awkward though. "Okay, whatever you say. So, do you need anything else? I'm using one of my breaks to check on you, Jonathan." "No, you are good to go. Thank you anyways, Lenny." John showed no sign of recognition at all. "Sure, John, sure." He was about to turn away, but stopped. One last chance. "Say, did you get a chance to look into those files I told you about?" "Files?" John said. "Yeah, that we discussed at the diner," Lenny said. "I cannot say that I know what you are referring to, Lenny." Lenny nodded. Whatever this thing was, wasn't John. If it had killed him, it was still giving Lenny a chance to leave. Why? Must have been somebody else I told that to. Just call me if you need something," Lenny said. "Of course, Lenny, of course." It was time to go. Time to call West. It was hard. Damn hardest thing Lenny's ever done. But he started to walk away. He knew he was leaving John behind somehow. Then John muttered something. "Smile. You're on camera." Lenny turned. "What? Did you say something?" "Oh, it's nothing," John said. "It was just something that I was told earlier today. See you later, Lenny." Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. And thank you especially if you made it all the way to the end of the story. I had fun writing that one. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe if you did. Do you have another story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read with the author's permission. Me! Would you like to support me? Consider checking out the PayPal link below where you can send in a donation. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out my Reddit where the story will be posted if you feel like it. Don't let the shadows get too close.